Back to my self-proclaimed official nemesis, Charles Manson, deceased. Remember, Manson's parents were evil fake physicist Albert Einstein the lunatic, and a New Zealand female using the name Fritz, found dead in a Berlin bunker in 1945, made over to look like Kaiser Adolf Hitler. In 1972, Kaiser Adolf returned to what he described as the foreign country that he was a diplomatic asylum resident of, Italy. He returned there from his trip to Australia, which resulted in him reviving me from not breathing and no pulse the day I was born, the 18th of January, 1972, in Warragul Hospital, Gippsland. The hospital is still the main hospital for the local region around the place Warragul, called the West Gippsland Regional Hospital. When I was processed as registered at birth to my married biological parents and went home in their custody in official Australian government records, it made me technically eligible to be named as heir under the constitutional monarchy of Germany, great-grandchild rule. I had to be voluntarily authorized into my Hohenzollern royal family by the Kaiser personally. Kaiser Adolf decided to do it, in a genuine attempt to do the generally morally correct thing for all involved. As soon as his personally authorized and sealed documents arrived in both East and West Germany from Italy, it became official. I became Crown Prince and future Prince Knight, Brian James Webb the Hohenzollern, step by step via one official authorization document to the next. The great-grandchild rule is only for use by a reigning monarch under strict conditions, and the documents were even sealed with his still official wax relief document seal registered in Europe in 1940 after he was Coronatet Kaiser. He'd had a seal die matrix on his clothing in pieces to disguise it when he was abducted, and he had hid it in his cell for nearly 16 years, before he took it with him when he escaped in 1959. He used it on the documents he named me his heir etc. within 1972, and had last used it to authorize documents before his abduction in October 1943. Same sealer matrix on both occasions. Scans of the wax seals from October 1943 and February 1972 revealed the same microscopic pits and flaws typical of the exact same matrix being used, down to electron microscope level. Like the thing the two deunified Germanys were, they sort of recognized and processed the documents, putting copies of them in a museum behind the last documents he officially sealed in 1943 before his abduction, so any visitor couldn't see the details, but could see the red seals on them, the only documents in the museum with red wax seals. Both Germanys, particularly West Germany, then told several parties immediately, like interesting gossip delivered by pretend subordinate types to foreign countries, including the USA, over a bevy. The USA took it in, but seemed to ignore it, which was later described as a failure of American intelligence they still try to blame me for. Some parties that were more interested, unofficially. Charles Manson was on death row, having received the death penalty for several heinous offenses including crimes against the young actress Sharon Tate, who was clearly related to my Hohenzollern family. A boring Einstein versus the Hohenzollerns theme. It was February 1972, and I was 1 month old. Seemingly within days of me being officially named Kaiser Adolf's heir, which was totally legitimate and completely suspicion-free, some people in the USA had put together a plan to steal it off me ASAP. They approached Manson in jail, who was on the proverbial death row, awaiting an automatic appeal of her death sentence under Californian law, which was procedure for a death penalty verdict to check if the death penalty was too severe. All people given the death penalty as a sentence in California were put through an automatic appeal to see if the sentence should be downgraded to life without parole. They initiated a chat with Manson and offered her a deal. They said they would let her off the death penalty as soon as possible and have her sentence reduced to life without parole, with other minor privileges, if she agreed to get pregnant in jail to attempt to breed a lookalike of me to steal my identity with for the Einsteins. They would choose the sperm, she would gestate the baby, it would be born in prison, and they would take it away immediately and wait to check its looks. There would be a first pregnancy period where things would be in progress, but not final, until she handed over the first baby. Charles Manson agreed, and was soon pregnant afterwards, with the impregnation happening in the jail medical suite. All by the end of February 1972. To reassure Manson the deal was pending but ultimately done already, they used the automatic death sentence appeal that was in progress at the time, the Mr. Anderson case, to suddenly declare the death penalty unconstitutional in the state of California. Then placed all dates for execution, confirmed death sentences, and automatic appeals on hold until that was finalized. It gave enough time for the first baby to be born. Manson soon realized threats of self-termination of the child would be a useful bargaining chip. She made a few demands that to her seemed slightly unrealistic, or she wouldn't hand the first baby over. She demanded extra privileges and a personal doctor to monitor her health, for the sake of the babies as the excuse. Some sundry communication demands to outsiders. Then said she would not hand over the first baby unless the authorities pretended she was up for parole once every 3 years, and interviewed her on camera like a TV interview chat pseudo-parole hearing, say 60-minute style, and released the footage on media when she asked. She had holding future unborn babies hostage before birth as the ransom, to get herself on TV from jail. Manson's reasoning was that if a child she gave birth to was going to steal my identity and Royal Hohenzollern family off me, she would need to give instructions to her followers where she could, and give coded messages to the general public who would watch and understand the code, to prepare everyone, particularly me, for her offspring to replace me. She held the first baby to ransom in the last few months of the pregnancy, and they said yes to her demands unconditionally, as if they got off relatively lightly, really. All the publicly released material after that was purely aimed solely at me, with coded instructions to her followers on how to proceed with what, should certain events happen. She was certain I would watch it all if it got broadcast, and dedicated herself to stalking me from jail. The other thing I will add here, for those who have seen endless repeats of fictional documentaries on my great-grandfather Kaiser Adolf Hitler the Hohenzollern, is that Charles Manson's mother, the New Zealand female found dead in Berlin in 1945 pretending to be Adolf, was genuinely directly part responsible for mass genocide herself. Particularly from December 1943 to her death in 1945 in that bunker in Berlin, found dead on top of Eva. She lured millions of Germans to their deaths with a voice impersonation of Kaiser Adolf over emergency radio, which was of much poorer audio quality than usual, after he was abducted in December 1943, and was involved in the capture, torture, and murder of minorities like homosexuals and Jewish people, etc., herself. Then moved on with the Neo-Nazis to hunting down remaining law enforcement and military left in Germany after the major cities' CBDs were seemingly deserted due to mass genocide. Including using her infamous hotline phone. She thought she was Einstein's favorite and followed his orders implicitly, ad-libbing when he didn't send instructions. The idea that one German citizen living in a major city was mass murdered for every Jewish person was a real probability. Like they kept strict count and pretended it was an Einstein equation being fulfilled. I have also heard genuine references to the maths being 2 or 3 German civilians for every Jew, using the Einstein's intellectual vomit. Every action has an equals but opposite reaction. One of those rare statements he actually came up with himself. An attempt to pretend he was an automated robot, committing crimes as a chain reaction to others' behavior, as if not responsible for his own actions, and if he did it once could do it up to 3 times more to balance out the universe. When the first baby didn't look like me early, they got her pregnant again. The death penalty was then confirmed as abolished in the state of California, to facilitate her taking the time to have the perfect imposter losers. She took fertility drugs and started having multiple children births, then moved on to having her over-harvested once a month for embryos. The reason she never left Folsom Prison, I assume.